Welcome, everyone. As we invite you to join us for the learning of Torah Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, as we broadcast here from our flagship station at the Agudas Yisroel of Fairways, Lakewood. As always, we begin with Hakar Satayv to TorahAnytime.com for giving us a platform to teach Torah in 187 countries. We thank Kol HaLashon for giving us worldwide availability to people who do not have internet and do not have advanced technology or choose wisely not to use it. We welcome all those that are listening on YouTube and on Facebook and on Torah Communications Network. Tonight, we do have two sponsors, as I asked for, and they came through, and they did come through from the wild blue yonder of the globe, as we are sponsored by Aryeh Pridonov, and he's sponsoring it for extra shmira for Chaim Zelig ben Dina, for Meir Shraga ben Chana, for Shmuel Tzvi ben Chana, and for Shlomo ben Malka Tzipora, and also that Tzvi Moshe ben Davida should find a Zivig Hogain Bikarov Mamish. We're also sponsored by Richard Gallis in appreciation of these Shiurim, and with thanks. We want to thank our sponsors, and they really support all that I do and all the time I spend with the machinery and with the uploading and oodles of places. So thank you very much to sponsor Lech Lecha, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Eila told us Noach. It says that these are the offspring of Noach. So the first word in the Parsha, Eila, we know is a limitation. These, not everything, these. Eila is a limitation. So it says, Eila told us Noach. So the Dazakain Balitaisa says that there are four places that it says Eila told us. These are the offspring, and it always comes to exclude. Eila told us Hashemayim. These are the offspring of the heaven, and that comes to exclude, to passel, so to speak, Tayu Vavayu, that which was beforehand, that which was void and confusing, and also all the worlds that Hashem destroyed before He created earth. Eila told us Noach disqualifies the 10 generations before Noach that were wiped out. Eila told us Shem disqualifies Chum and Yafis. These are the toldos of Shem. Only the world continued on with Shem, and then Avram Avinu disqualifying Chum and Yafis. And Eila told us Yaakov. These are the offspring of Yaakov that comes to exclude the Esav and all of his chieftains. Now, this is important because it explains what the Torah's agenda here is first. Eila told us always means that this comes to exclude those that didn't get it right. Eila told us Noach, the 10 generations before didn't get it right. So the Torah says, how did Noach succeed to have Shem? And through that, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, how did he get it right? Shem had the great yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. How did he get it right? So the way he got it right was Eila told us Noach. That Noach made sure that he was righteous. Because that's the secret in having good children. You know, there's a famous word from the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe says that Everybody, you ask them, why aren't you learning? Oh, you have to put so much in to pay for my children's tuition. Why are you rushing your davening? I'm busy for my children. And then the children say they're busy for their children. And then those children say they're busy from that. So he says, who's going to be good? Everybody's busy for their children. That's a famous word from the Kotzker Rebbe. So the Torah says the recipe is Eila Toldos Noach, Noach ish tzaddik, Tomim hoyu b'doraisiv. Noach concentrated on being a tzaddik. If you want to have good children, you got to become a role model. That's the way to have a shem. You got to be, and that's why Rashi says, Iker Toldoseim shel tzaddikim ma'asim tovim. That means that besides the simple pshat of Iker Toldoseim shel tzaddikim ma'asim tovim, which is a Medrash Tanchuma, there's a Medrash Tanchuma that a man died without children. And he was very morose at the end of his life that he didn't have children to carry on his name. So the Rebbeinu Shalom comforted him and said, it says in the pasuk, Pri Tzadik Eitz Chaim. The fruit of the righteous is Eitz Chaim. The fruit of the righteous, Eitz Chaim, is Torah. Eitz Chaim ilo achazikim. The fruit of the righteous is Torah. So it's true that Iker Ma'asem Shel Tzadikim Ma'asim Tovim. But Iker Toldoseim Shel Tzadikim Ma'asim Tovim. And the tzaddik has to be interested in learning himself. Chayecha koidem. But and the Yid HaKadosh said that. He says you have to be interested in your own growth. But the Yid HaKadosh says that if a person works on making himself a tzaddik, that will give him hatzlacha with his children. That's a famous word from the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim says, we say in Kriya Shema, v'lemadatem oisam es b'neichem. But oisam is written chaser vav, it's written defective. So it's as if you could read it, v'lemadatem atem es b'neichem. Because if you want your children to learn, you got to learn. If you're Mavis Sedra, the children fall asleep Friday night and they hear you being Mavis Sedra, they grow up and they're Mavis Sedra. That's the way it works. And if it's too late for children, it works with grandchildren. That's the way I know. I remember it so vividly that there was once a blizzard, and it was about 3 foot of snow. And we're living in Staten Island, and I had a shiur, a daf yomi in Borough Park with 100 people. Even on a snow night, they walked there. And somebody took me in a Hummer. And, it was only emergency vehicles. I remember I went on the Verrazano Bridge. It's the only time I saw that. There was only one lane on the Verrazano Bridge. The one level was closed. There was only one lane. And it was only police cars, ambulances. There was tanks out to get doctors to the hospitals. And I remember my son Nehemiah saying to my Rebbetzin Alei Shalom, Liba Basar Baron, Tati is going out tonight? Tonight? He never forgot that lesson. To learn, you go out in 3 feet of snow. But it's a famous word from the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe said, if you're always screaming at your child, why aren't you learning? So you'll accomplish that when your child grows up, he'll scream at his child, why aren't you learning? But if you want your child to learn, you got to take a big Gemara, bang it down on the table, and learn with a loud voice, and then the children will learn. That's the way it works. So therefore, the Torah says, Eila Toldos Noach. It doesn't right away. The right thing would be Eila Toldos Noach Shem Chom V'Yafes. No, Eila Toldos Noach Noach Ish Tzadik Tamim Es Elikim Es Alech Noach That's the way that Vayoyled Noach Shem. That's the way to have a shame. The only way to have a shame is to show your children that kind of model. Like I've told you this many times, but it's worthwhile to repeat. It says, then vishinantam levanecha. If what you have is in your heart, then you could convey it to your children. That's why parents are very successful in making their children Yankee fans. Because when a child sees a father gleam when he talks about opening day, when he talks about Mickey Mantle, Don Mattingly, and the child sees the gleam, then that's what you pass to your children. That's why mothers succeed very well in making their daughters shoppers. Because the child sees a gleam in the mother's eyes when she's going out to the mall to shop. So that works. So you want to have hatzlacha with your children, you got to be a role model. And that's why it's interesting. It says, Eila told us Noach, there's a Moshe B'Zakain Bali Taisvus that says Eila is B'Gematria 36 because Noach was one of the Lamed Vav. He was a Lamed Vavnik. The Eila is B'Gematria Lamed Vav. It's very interesting what he says over there, that every generation has 36 tzaddikim, and each such tzaddik is protected by 36 malachim, and that's why it says in the Torah malach 36 times, and each of these tzaddikim are surrounded by 36 kindnesses from Hashem, and that's why it says in Tilim Chesed 36 times. It's very interesting. And by the way, that's why it repeats. We're going to talk a lot tonight, about that it repeats, Eila told us Noach. It sounds strange. Eila told us Noach, ish tzaddik. Why does it say Noach 2 times? There's no double talk in the Torah. So one explanation in the Medrash is that those that Hashem love, it repeats twice. So for example, it says Moshe, it says Shmuel, it says Yaakov. Whoever is a tzaddik is repeated twice. So Eila told us Noach, it repeats him twice to tell us he was a tzaddik. And he was beloved of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And making himself beloved of the Rabbeinu Shalom, that was the way that he produced the shame. Now, there is I'm going to go on the side a little bit now, because it was fascinating to me. So I'm going to go a little bit on a tangent over here, but the Yerushalmi asks on this idea that it says Noach twice and Moshe twice. It says Terach twice. Terach was an Ovid Avodah Zarah, so why does it say Terach twice? So the Yerushalmi says that Terach did tshuva. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. And indeed, it's really interesting that that's the way I grew up, assuming that Terach did tshuva, because that's a Rashi later on in Lech Lecha. Rashi says in Lech Lecha that when Avram Avinu passed away, later on, it says, not in Lech Lecha, but it says, Va'ata tovay el avosecha b'shalom, and you will join your ancestors in peace. Now, he wasn't buried in the same place as Terach. Terach was buried in Choron. He was buried in Mount Machpelah in Hebron. So when it says Va'ata tovay el avosecha b'shalom, it means you'll join him in the next world. But Terach was an Ovid Avodah Zarah. Avram was going to Gan Eden. Terach was going to Gehenna. So what does it mean? V'ata tovay el avosecha b'shalom. So Rashi says that we see that Terach did tshuva. But there's a big problem with this. Because at the end of our Parsha, it says, Vayomas Terach b'choron. Terach died in Haran. Right before Lech Lecha, it says that Terach died. So it makes it sound that Terach died, and only then Avram left. But it's not true. Terach lived 60 years longer after Avram left. So why does it say beforehand, Vayomas Terach b'Charan? So Rashi says it didn't want Avram to look like he abandoned an older father. That people should say, yeah, he's the man of chesed. Don't you know charity starts at home? And here you see he had an elderly father and he abandoned him and left him. So therefore the Torah says, Vayomas Terach b'Charan, that everybody, the casual reader, should assume that Terach already died and then Avram left. And as the Sivsei Chachamim explains, Rashi continues and says, and it's not a lie, because Rishoim afilu b'chayim kriyim mesim. The wicked, even in their lifetime, they're dead. There are people, many people in this world that are walking dead people. There's no value to their life. So Terach, even when he was alive, he was dead, because Rishon afilu b'chayim kriyim mesim. So therefore, the fact that he was really alive, and it says Vayomas Terach b'Charan earlier, it's not a lie, because even when he was alive, he was like he was dead. That, by the way, that's the reason why in Shemona Esrei we say V'chol hachayim yodu chesed. Now that's a very difficult statement. All the living, thank you. If you look, you'll see signs in the subway. I don't go in the subway, Baruch Hashem, but if you look in the subway, there are signs that say there are 1 million atheists and they're doing fine. So what do you mean V'chol hachayim yodu chesed? There are 1 million atheists. What do you mean V'chol hachayim? So some translate V'chol hachayim means, and for all our life we thank you. There is those that translate it that way. But the simple translation is, it means all those that are really alive. All those that believe in Hashem and live a Torah life, they're alive. Rishon, they're dead even when they're alive. So when it says Vayomas Terach b'Charan, it means that even while he was alive, he lived 60 years, but he's dead. You're right. It says it that people shouldn't think he abandoned his father. But it's not a lie, because he was dead. Now, if he did tshuva, how could you say that he was dead? And then I'll tell you even a bigger question. It always bothered me, this. I haven't found it. I think I once found it somewhere. But we know we always are Messiahim b'davar tov. We always finish things in a good way. If you remember, we learned in Moed Katan, we were learning about mourning, but then we finished the Masechta that Ubila Amavis LaNetzach, because we want to finish the Masechta in a good way. Why do we end the Sedra with death? Vayomas Terach b'Charan. You're not supposed to end the Sedra with something bad. Why do we end it with something bad? A Rasha, we learned that Misas Risham, Toiv Lahem v'Toiv La'ilam. The death of the wicked is good for them and it's good for the world. It's good for them because they won't continue sinning and get punished more. And it's good for the world because the world is rid of their trouble. If Terach was taka a sinner when he died, so that's why it ends with it. Vayomas Terach b'Charan. That's a good thing. So then that belies what it says that Terach did tshuva. So the truth of the matter is that the Ramban explains what it means that Terach did tshuva. It says Terach never did tshuva. But Avram Avinu saved him and brought him into Gan Eden. And the Ramban says an interesting lesson. It says, Kola eitzim ksherim l'maracha. All wood could be used as logs for fire on the pyre of the Mizbeach, chutz mishel zayis v'shel gefen, except for olive wood and the wood from the vine. That's excluded from being burnt. Why? Says the Medrash, shemen v'yayim kroivim l'Mizbeach. oil and wine are offered on the Mizbech, wine as in the Sachim, oil in the Menachos, in the meal offering, and therefore they save their parents, the olive wood and the twigs from the vine, the wood from the vine, from being burnt on the Mizbech. Children can save, like it says, Bra Mezaka Abba, and Biglal Avos Toshia Banim. Children can save their father. And that's what happened with Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu saved Terach. And that's why it says when he died, not that Terach actually did tshuva. Terach was an idolater. And that's why in the Haggadah it says, it's referring to Terach. We wouldn't call him that if he did tshuva. And that's why Terach is the same letters as Rosach, anger. Terach was always a source of anger. But Avram Avinu saved him. Avram Avinu saved him because of the fact that Avram led a righteous life. He was able to save his father. So let's just do a recap here before we leave this. The Parsha, when it says Eila told us Noach, the Parsha when it says Eila told us Noach, doesn't go right away and say Eila told us Noach Shem Cham V'Yafes, because Iker told us Seyem Shel Tzadikim Maisim Tovim. The Hatzlacha of offspring is the good deeds that the person does himself. If the person makes himself a tzaddik, a tamim, that will produce a shem. Eila was pasul the Rishonos, right? The 10 generations before Noach didn't work. How did Noach produce a shem? Because he understood that in order to produce righteous children, you have to live a righteous life. I always said that it's interesting that Hashem teaches us things in a backhanded manner. It says that Hashem, he doesn't say clothe the naked. He clothed Adam and Chava, and we learn from that to clothe the naked. He visited the sick, so therefore we learn from him when he visited Avram that you're supposed to visit the sick. He comforted Yitzchak. When Avram died, we learned that you should comfort the mourner. Why doesn't the Torah say, clothe the naked, comfort the mourner? Why does it teach it to us in such an indirect way? The same thing it says that Sefer Bereshis has another name. It's called Sefer HaYosher. Because we learn from the life of the Yeshorim. From Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we see that Avram pitched Sarah's tent first. We learn that you're supposed to be mechabed your wife more than yourself. Why do we have to learn from others? Because Hashem is teaching us a lesson, how to teach. The best way to teach is by example. That's the first lesson that we learn there. The first lesson, we could use it for children, we could use it for grandchildren. The grandchildren see how we make a bracha, how we answer amen, how we treat a spouse, and they learn from us. We're always an example. Now, I just want to mention, I have a fine sefer in the house called Tamei HaMikra. Very nice haskama from my cousin. And he says an interesting interpretation of the words of Rashi, Iker Toldoisem Shel Tzadikim Maisim Tovim. Now, he says that the main offspring of the righteous is good deeds. But he learns that it's the good deeds of all the righteous persons, Talmidim. All the people that the righteous person impacted on. And that's the meaning. Iker Toldoisem, the essential offspring of the tzaddik is the Maisim Tovim, of the thousands of people through his life that he impacted on. Now it's true he has his own children too. But it says Hamidu Talmidim Harbe. We all could impact on thousands of people through our life. And it says, Kol ha'lomed ben chaveroi Torah ki'ilu yoldai. So Iker Maiseim Shel Tzadikim, Iker Toldoseim Shel Tzadikim is the Maisim Toivim that people do. Now, by the way, it's not only, you say, Rabbi Weiss, you could say that. You have Shiurim on anytime on Kol Lashon, on YouTube. You reach a lot of people. The Ramosha said that in Birchas HaTorah we ask Hashem, Lilmoid u'lalamei lishma v'lasos. So you wonder, what does it mean I should learn and teach? I'm not a teacher. I'm a shoemaker. I'm a plumber. I'm an accountant. I'm a dentist. What do you mean, Lalamed? Ramosha said, the way you act in Shul, you don't talk in Shul, you're a Malamed. And the whole Shul sees you don't talk. They see you put $1 in the pushka. They see you greet your wife nice when you go out of Shul. Oh, it's so good to see you. I'm glad you made it. It's nice to walk home with you. You're being a Malamed. Iker Toldoseim Shel Tzadikim Maisim Tovim. A person lives a righteous life, their Maisim Tovim that people learn from them, that's their main offspring. However, now, Rabbi say, as important as all of this was, now we get to the main part of the Shiur. This was only prefatory remarks. Now we get to the real fundamentals of living. Remember, I told you that whatever is in the beginning, in the earlier parts of the Torah, is very fundamental. Now we get to a very fundamental part of life. Very fundamental. Eila told us Noach. So we said, there's no double talking in the Torah. What says Eila told us Noach each tzaddik? Eila told us Noach each tzaddik. Tell me why does it repeat Noach twice? So the Shach al Torah, one of the Gurei Ari, written over 500 years ago, the Divrei Yisroel says that the reason why it repeats Eila told us Noach is because Kol sheruach habriya is Noach emenu, ruach hamokim Noach emenu. Whoever people are at ease with, that's a sign that Hashem is at ease with them. The litmus test, the barometer if Hashem is pleased with us, is if people are at ease with us, they're comfortable with us, they're not walking on eggshells around us, that's a sign that Hashem is at ease with us. And that's the Lashon, Eila told us Noach, that if a person is Noach im Abriyos, then he's Noach im Hashem. That's the Shach al Torah, the Divrei Shal. And actually, this is perfectly in sync with the Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim says, why does it repeat Noach, Noach? Noach l'shamayim, Noach l'briyos. He got along with heaven, and he got along with people. And that's the same lesson as the Shach al Torah. A person wants to know if Hashem is pleased with him. If people are at ease with him, then that's a sign that Hashem is at ease with him. And this is actually, and one of the things on a resume of a Rav for 4 decades is that I said over 1,000 hespedim, over 1,000 eulogies. And there are many times when I had the zechiyah. I remember that I said this by the levaya of, we have over here, he's on tonight, Yehuda Shmuel Eisenberg, and we have a lot of times his father, Bruce. So their father was a Talmud of mine. And I said this by his levaya. There's a Taisus Rush. The Rush says, Eila told us Noach. Why is it repeated? So the Rosh says Noach had a lot of accolades. Noach was what we call a titled person. Muchter b'nimusin. He had a lot of titles. You know, there are people that have a whole alphabet soup after their name. PhD, LCSW. They have a whole alphabet soup after their name. So he was a titled person, Noach. He was an ish, a mensch, a tzaddik, a righteous, tamim, b'dayraisa. He walked with God. He was really, it says also Mordechai Muchter b'nimusin. He also had a lot of titles. Ish Yudi, Shmon Mordechai ben Yor ben Shimi ben Kish, Ish Yemini. All of those are titles. The Gemara says, Ben Shimi ben Sheshama HaKadosh Baruch Hu Trilosai ben Kish ben Sheekish al Daisai Rachamim. He had many titles. Ish Yehudi, that he stood up against idolatry. He had many titles. Of all the titles that Noach had, an Ish, a Mensch, a Tzaddik, a Tamim, the first title says, the Rosh Eila told us, Noach, that he was an Ish Naicha, a gentle person. There's a word in Yiddish that is not a similar word in English, and that's Edelkeit. Edelkeit is a challenge of gentleness and refinement, a nobility of spirit. That was Noach. And this is the first accolade, more than a tzaddik. He was an easygoing, gentle person. You should know there's a famous, it's quoted by the Rebbes, by the Balei Musar, the Ben Ish Chai quotes it. There's a famous Sefer Charedim. The Charedim says, somebody who's Noach Lebrius, he doesn't get angry even when people tempt him to get angry or irritate him. Such a person finds chen in the eyes of Hashem. Such a person finds chen in the eyes of Hashem. And says the Charedim, that's why it says at the end of last week's Parsha, Noach motza chen b'einei Hashem. He says because Noach and chen are the same letters. An ish naicha finds chen. Now I want to tell you something. This is so easy to say. You know, a speaker has to be very careful that he shouldn't be noah doirish ve'ena noah mekayim. That he shouldn't say nice things and not fulfill them. First of all, it's not right, it's hypocritical. That's why it says, beautify yourself and only then beautify others. But second of all, he won't succeed in conveying it to people. Because only dvarim hayotzim min alev nichnasim leiv, or as it says, divrei emes nikarim. So as I'm saying it, I want to share with you that this is a very hard thing to accomplish. A very hard thing to accomplish. I just had an incident where some mail was taken out, and I like to maintain a careful eye on mail, because if something is missing, it could be a big problem. And I saw the mail, and I responded to my Rebbetzin. It's very rare, Baruch Hashem, but I responded with an irate voice, "Why is the mail here?" You know, so she said correctly that, you know, I put it by your seat that you should see it. But in retrospect, I told her that I don't know why I responded irately. That's not being Noach. I had a second Maisa recently, because I'm checking myself. I had a second Maisa recently that somebody wanted me to do a service and wasn't offering to pay anything. It was a big service, and they were being picky also, and they weren't offering to pay anything. And I answered irately, you want a lot of things without offering a cent. And I realized in retrospect that that's not what's described in the Charedim. The Charedim says that even if a person is pageya you, or does something to test you, you're not supposed to respond irately. Now, this is not an easy thing. That's why the reward is so great. That's why it says that you should know that you're going to find chen in the eyes of Hashem. Now, I want to tell you that this is the most famous letter written in the history of mankind. The most famous letter written in the history of mankind is for sure the Igeres HaRamban. Unless it's the Igeres HaGra, but more people know the Igeres HaRamban than the Igeres HaGra. And the Ramban was before the Gra. He's a Rishon. Igeres HaRamban, which people read every day, throughout the world, throughout the ages. The Ramban starts his advice. Picture this. The Ramban is giving advice to his children. And he could give advice about anything. About Torah, about Yiras Hashem, about charity, about Shalom Bayis. How does the Ramban start his letter? The Ramban starts his letter by saying, listen to the Lashon. Tisnai Tomid Lidaber Kol Dvarecha Benachas Lekol Adam Ubekol Eis. Again, this is how he starts his letter, advice. He could have chosen anything. Tisnai Tomid. You should act always to speak all your words gently to every person at all times. So you see, he's very careful. First, he says to every person, even difficult people. There are people that are difficult. There are people that are very trying. So even to those people, it's Shlomo HaMelech tells us, Manerach Meishivchem. A gentle response diffuses anger. So speak Lekol Adam or Bekol Eis. Bekol Eis means even Erev Shabbos, even Erev Pesach, even if you're an accountant on April 15th, even if you're in a bad mood, even if you're not feeling well, even if you have a headache, even if you didn't have a good night's sleep, even if it's the wrong time in a month, Tisnai Tomid Lidaber Kol Dvarecha Lekol Adam Ubekol Eis. That's a way of life. That's a way of life. I want to tell you that the Ben Ish Chai produces this idea in an interesting way. It's interesting, the same idea, but the Heilige Ben Ish Chai, Zech Tzadik HaKodesh Ruach Zchus Yagen Aleinu, he says that we know, the pasuk tells us, Kamayim aponim el ponim kein leva adam la'adam. Just like a person looks in the water and sees his reflection, so also is the heart of man to man. The way we treat someone, that's the way they're going to treat us. And therefore he says, Eile toldos Noach. He says, toldos means, what's the outcome of Noach, of being gentle to people? Noach. They will be gentle to you. That's how he learns it. Eile toldos Noach. He learns the repetition of Noach. Eile toldos Noach. If you want to know what the outcome of being gentle is noyach. People will react in kind and be gentle to you. That's why it says, manarach meishivchema l'shoin chachamim marpeh. This makes a person mu'urivim abrius. This makes a person beloved of people. You know, when we look for somebody to represent us on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and to be an ambassador for us, one of the things, primary things that we look for is the person should be a mu'urivim abrius. We don't send up a quarrelsome person. You should know that this trait, besides, Dale Carnegie says how to win friends and influence people. This is it. But not only that, this makes our prayers effective. There's a mimer, it's a gematria in Masechtas Kala. In the small Masechtas, like Masechtas Seifim, Masechtas Derech Eretz, there's a Masechtas Kala. It says that if a person is roideif shalom, if a person pursues peace, that means that you talk to people nicely. Ein tfilosai chayzeres reikam. Their tefillah is never unanswered, and it backs it up with a gematria, because the gematria of shalom, which is 376, is the same gematria as shaveya, 376. Our prayers are answered when we are gentle and easygoing to people. Now, of course, this is a work in progress. You can't get there in one. You have to have this goal. I've said many times, you can't hit a home run unless you have home plate. You can't score a touchdown unless you have the end zone, right? You can't get a goal unless you have, the goal. You have to. So you have to have a goal. The ambition is that no matter what, to answer gentle, to be easygoing with people. That's the ambition. Actually, this is a bigger level than what the Gemara says in Masechtas Chulin, which you heard me quote all the time. The Gemara says in Masechtas Chulin, "Ma'um nosa yishal adam ba'olam yasa atzmai ki'ilein." What's a person's profession in this world? To know how to be a mute, to know how to zip it. That's a very big thing, because it takes two to tango. If you're going to know how to be quiet, right? So then it says that it says a person should make himself like a reed. He should bend, because chofa bishta meya, then 100 bad things will pass him by. It says toila eretz al blima. The world survives on those that are boiling piv b'shas meriva. They shut their mouth in a time of quarrel. Here we're saying a higher level than that. After all, we want it to be that we find favor in the eyes of Hashem. Remember that the whole world was destroyed. Hashem could have just finished the job and create a new one. But Noach matzah chen. This is very powerful. Noach found favor. We want to find favor. Remember we said this is a litmus test. Eila told us Noach. You want to know if Hashem is happy with you? You have to be at ease with people. You want to know what's higher? Somebody asks you a question. What's more than an ish, a tzaddik, a tamim? Eila told us Noach, an ish naicha. You're right. It's a very big level. It's something to strive for. So I want to tell you a story. This is some story. During the communist rule, Yamach Shemam, there was a very successful lumber merchant by the name of Rab Gedalia Dessler. And he had a very successful business. You know, they used to have forests, and they used to actually send the lumber down streams. It was a very, very successful business. And one day, after doing a good deal, he came home with a pouch of a lot of money, and he put it down. He went to Shul, he went to sleep. In the morning, the pouch was missing. He checked. There was no one that was in and out of the house, except they had a young manservant, a young Goyish man that worked in the house, and he confronted him. And he asked him straight, he looked him in the face, and he said, "Did you take the bag of money?" So the man looked at him with shame, and he said, "Yes, I did. I have a lot of debts, and I saw it lying around, and I couldn't contain myself. I took it." So he said, "Please return it to me." So he said, "Look, I'll be honest, I'll return whatever is left. But I was dealing with some loan sharks, and I immediately paid." So he gave him what was left, and to the servant's astonishment, Rav Gedalia said, "You could stay in my employ." So he asked him, "Why are you allowing me?" So he says, "Well, I could see that you didn't do it out of evil. You did it out of desperation. So I think you learned your lesson. I see shame, and I'm going to give you another chance." And he warned his family to keep an eye, not to leave out things. And this man, true to his word, he continued in their employ for about 7-8 more years. They never had another incident. And then afterwards, he went on. He said he wanted to try to get married, and he moved to the big city, and they parted very well. About a year later, the KGB that had their eyes on trying to discredit this Jew and take over his industry, they came to the house with a sting, and they discovered in the house a typewriter. Now, in those days, regular people didn't have a typewriter. He needed a typewriter because he was a big businessman and he sent out letters, but they accused him that if he has a typewriter, he must be a spy, and he must be sending out information. They made a kangaroo court, and 1, 2, 3, they condemned him to 15 years in Siberia. That's the way things worked in those days. His wife was in shock. She was an energetic woman. She realized that she probably would never see her husband alive. He wouldn't survive in Siberia. So she did some checking, and she found that she should run to Petersburg. In Petersburg, the head of the KGB was supposedly a decent fellow, and she should throw herself at his mercy. Maybe he could do something, at least commute the sentence. So she immediately went to Petersburg, and as she enters the room of this chief of the KGB, to her shock, it was the man that worked by them. And he looked at her, he recognized her immediately, and he said, "Why are you here?" So she said, "They made a trumped-up charge against my husband, and they're sending him to Siberia for 15 years. So the man immediately said, "He was good to me when I stole, and I really stole. I know that he's not a spy. I have to risk my life for him." So immediately he had the accusation. Even he had to work with the rules. He immediately had the accusation stalled and got for the whole family first-class berths with diplomatic pouch to Lithuania. And he whisked them out of Russia. And then he got them first-class berths to London. He felt that they weren't even safe in Lithuania. And he got them to London. Rabbi Gedalia Dessler, when he arrived in London, he made it publicly known, the story. And he said the truth of the matter is that when I confronted this worker, I was very upset. I was very angry. How could you do this? I give you such a job. I treat you so well. And you steal the money. And he remembered Eila told us Noach, that you should respond gently. He said, if I wouldn't have responded gently to him, I would have rotted and died in Siberia. That's the reward for being an ish naicha, for being a gentle person. I have to tell you, Rabbi Isai, that if you're honest with yourself, this midah of being an ish naicha, of being easygoing, when people get under your skin, and rightfully so. That's the lashon of the Charedim. The Charedim says you want to find favor in the eyes of Hashem, then you have to react with ease with those that are menasim lachisai, that they test your patience. Those people that get under your skin. But that's the way to find favor in the eyes of Hashem. That's a big homework, Rabbi say. Now, by way of completion, I want to share with you that the Ben Ish Chai says this is one way to find favor in the eyes of Hashem. He says there's a second way to find favor in the eyes of Hashem. And he says the second way to find favor in the eyes of Hashem is to learn Torah in the night. So even when you're tired, you come home, and there was no time to open up a sefer, to be Mavisedra a little bit, to open up a Tilim. He says a person that learns Torah in the night finds favor in the eyes of Hashem, because the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah Gimel Amud Beis, Kala Oisik b'Torah b'Layla, whoever learns Torah in the night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moishech Alav Chut Shel Chesed b'Yom. Hashem gives him a thread of kindness in the day. And the Torah says that Torah is Yalas Chain. Now, actually, although I've been spending the whole time saying that it says Toldos Noach, but actually in this pasuk it says Noach 3 times. Because it says Eila told us Noach ish tzadik tamim hayu b'doraisa, es elikim is alech Noach. So in one pasuk it says Noach 3 times. So the Balaturim says it's because he saw 3 worlds. He saw the world before the flood, he saw the world after the flood, and he also saw the world after the generation of the dispersion, when it went from 1 language of Hebrew to 70 languages. So he saw 3 worlds. That's why it says Noach, Noach, Noach. But the Sefer Eitzah says a different reason why it says Noach 3 times, and it's an extension of what we were talking about. It's because he was Noach b'diburai, Noach b'hiluchai, and Noach b'maisa. He was easygoing in the way he talked. He was easygoing in his carriage. You didn't find him running all over the place and dashing. He was easygoing in his talk. He was easygoing in his carriage. And he was easygoing in his deeds. Now, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, till now, everything was very laudatory about Noach. And so it should be. Torah says he was a tzaddik, and ish, a tamim, he walked with God. But the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says in a different direction, because the Torah is nidreshes b'shivim panim, in a different direction. And you know, before I tell you this Orach Chaim HaKadosh, I want to first of all thank our 2 sponsors, Richard Gallis and also Aryeh Pridanov, who sponsored tonight's share. Aryeh for the Shmira of Chaim Zelig ben Dina, Meir Shraga ben Chana, Shmuel Tzvi ben Chana, Shlomo ben Malka Tzipora, and for Zivik Hagen Bekarev, Mamish, for Tzvi Moshe ben Davida, and by Richard Gallis in appreciation of the shir. The ability to do all these shiurim and to prepare for them for hours and hours, which of course comes from Hashem, and the setup of all the technology, the YouTube, and of course Torah Anytime, and first and second Kalaloshin, and then all the other things, YouTube and digital subscribers, and Facebook and Torah Communications Network. This is all made possible by the sponsorships. We do not yet have a sponsor for Lech Lecha, 718. You could get to me by texting me or emailing me, 718-916-3100. The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says, Eila told us Noach. These are the accounts of Noach. Noach was busy with himself and not enough with the rest of the world. Now, of course, this has to be taken in a grain of salt, because Rashi says he built a boat and it took 120 years, and he told everybody, you know why I'm building a boat for so long? Because Hashem is going to destroy the world and you have to do tshuva. But on his level, he didn't do enough. And the Kotzker Rebbe says that that's called a tzaddik in a peltz. Tzaddik in a peltz, it means a tzaddik with a heavy coat. And the Kotzker Rebbe explained, when it's cold outside, there's two ways to warm yourself. One way is to wear a heavy mink, which helps you, but it doesn't help anybody else. And the other way is to light a bonfire that warms up everybody. He says, Noach was a tzaddik in peltz. Avram Avinu lit a fire and warmed up tens of thousands of people. So Eila told us Noach that he was only Noach. And we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgal of Noach. And the idea of a Gilgal is to be Mesakin. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu went all the way in the other direction. He says, if you're not going to be Mechaper, Klal Yisroel, for the sin of the golden calf, Mecheni no mesifracha, wipe me out. Oh, he gave his life for the people. And that's why the Chidah says a remarkable thing. I mean, this is like one of the most amazing things. Mecheni na is the same letters as Menoyach Ani. If you do a juggle of Mecheni na, it becomes Menoyach Ani. Because I'm from Noach. And therefore I have to be Mesakin. When Noach only was Eila told us Noach, he was willing to wipe himself and erase himself for Klal Yisrael. It could be that the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh zoomed in on this because the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh wants to show you that nobody is perfect. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechata. We shouldn't be down if we have imperfections. Everybody has imperfections. Even Noach had an imperfection. I mean, could be that's why the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh zoomed in on that. I also want to tell you that usually I have another share called for the Shabbos table, which usually I only get around to recording late Thursday and sometimes on Friday. I had time today, so I actually recorded for the Noach Shabbos table already. So if you look on TorahAnytime.com and Kol HaLashon on YouTube, you'll already find for the Noach Shabbos table. That's already there. Of course, it's interesting that Aryeh Pridonov also subscribed to this share. There are some people that they don't want to have to wait till it's aired Thursday night. They want to get it early. So after I get off the share now, the first thing I did the Mishnayos already. We did that earlier. It's already on YouTube and on Torah Anytime and on Kol HaLashon. I send it out by Gmail. So if somebody was the digital share. So if somebody wants to subscribe to get it digitally every week, they could call me for that too at 718-916-3100. We want to thank you all for joining us. Wish you a good night and a wonderful Shabbos.